And of course, as we are in conversation, then remember, there is, of course, this particular report that has been released. Let's remind you and the viewers of these findings of this particular report. And remember that the president is seen here to have violated Section 96 of the Constitution. And this is a serious violation of the Constitution, and it relates to members of cabinet and deputy ministers undertaking any paid work. Now, the report says that whether the business may be running at a loss or not is irrelevant in this particular case, as there are no records that have been provided in this regard, and that recently another parcel of buffaloes were sold, and the president may have been entitled to some remuneration here as well. And the second one is a serious violation of Section 34 of the Prevention and Combating of Corrupt Activities Act, and this places a duty on any person to report corrupt transactions to any police officials. And of course, by violating Section 96(2)(b) of the Constitution, the panel has found that the president failed to uphold, defend and respect the Constitution as the supreme law of the country. And interestingly enough, he was part of those that drafted this very Constitution. And this one, the next one says, of course, it stays with Section 96 of the Constitution. It relates to the president being guilty of serious misconduct on placing himself in a situation that involves the risk of a conflict between the official responsibilities and private interests. And of course, these are the findings here. And when you read and comb through this particular report, you can then see that even the panel itself saying that in some of the instances, it didn't even have that much information. Let's discuss this further now with Qaanitah Hunter, News 24 Politics and Opinions Assistant Editor, and Angelo Fick, Auwal Socio-Economic Research Institute Director of Research. Thank you so much to you both for your time. I'll start with you, Angelo. The president had ample time to take the nation into his confidence on this matter. Is it too late now? Does it look like that ship has sailed?
Well, we don't know, because the president of the Republic of South Africa may have information about what he did and what he knew that isn't revealed in these documents. And that's one of the concerns. You raised it, that many of the formulation, the president on the face of it, prima facie, the return of that term to the South African public imaginary is crucial, may, have done all sorts of things that the panel can't come to a final conclusion on, but is suggesting that Parliament goes on the investigating trail to find out exactly what's going on, because receipts without ID numbers, how money came into the country, how you move about with foreign currency. The fact is that the story doesn't hang together for the expert panel. And if you look at the report in all its detail, with all of its grammatical and other spelling errors, there's a concern that one should have about how the story of what happened at Phala Phala doesn't hold together. And so the president will have to make a very, very calculated decision, as will the entire African National Congress, about what signal they want to send to South Africa. They know what the price has been for their conduct on Nkandla, diminishing electoral returns. They're facing an electoral problem in 2024. Do they want to go into this particular scenario, carrying the baggage and testing the patience of South Africans who don't want to see a repeat of what they saw between 2014 and 2018. And
before I come to you, Qaanitah, Angelo, I'd like to stay with something that you've said, that what kind of message are they sending then to the South African public? And some of these members of the public are not card-carrying members of the ANC. They may be supporters of the ANC and vote for the ANC. What are they thinking right now?
I don't know what the majority of South Africans are thinking, but what we know is that there is research that shows South Africans have a great distrust in public institutions, ranging from politics through to economics. And, the fact that we're the most unequal society on the planet is an indication of just the unequal chances at life that people have. And so the amounts of money that's being mentioned here and that's being stuffed into sofas or not kept in safes, these are beyond the imagination and practice of everyday South Africans. And so I suspect that the disillusion with the South African settlement post-1994 is at its highest level so far, and I can't see that rising given that the man who came into office promising a new dawn of no malfeasance, better administration, is now caught up in this. And whether he's guilty or not is not something that we can call at this point. But not to be able to refute these allegations outright the moment Arthur Fraser walked into the Rosebank police station and said this is what happened, that's of concern. And the fact that there is no paper trail and business is being conducted in this really odd way that doesn't involve receipts and seems to be, not involve the real exchange of goods, that's of concern. And here, anybody who's traveled outside South Africa knows that your bank tells you when you come back, you need to change the foreign currency back into the South African currency. You can't sit on top of foreign currency. And if you come into through customs, they want to know what you're carrying with you. How did this man come in with $580,000? How did he move around a country with great insecurity problems with this money? Why would you move money out of a safe into a sofa and think that's safer? None of this makes any sense.
And Qaanitah, as Angelo says, he came in talking tough, a card of clean governance. How damaging has Phala Phala been for his image, given what we've seen come out in the public domain, including this report now?
Yeah, it's been 6 months today since Arthur Fraser went to that Rosebank police station to open those charges. And we know that in these 6 months, the president has not said much. And really, when you look at the version that he gave to the Sandile Ngobo panel, it was not much details. Like Angela says, there was no receipts, the way he conducted business. Essentially, the version of events presented to the Ngobo report, because he never really take the public in his confidence, was dismissed to say, this looks possibly implausible. And I think that, this is the first time his version was tested in any way, because again, he has shied away for 6 months from being asked direct questions on the matter. He always skirted and said, he didn't ask specific, answer specific questions on the matter. And so now we have a version by judges who are looked at the accusations that we're facing, looked at the evidence submitted before them, looked at the president's version, and came up with something that says, this doesn't look quite like it. And so that the president's version was not bought by this panel led by a whole former Chief Justice. Now, it's very, very important to understand that the president has consistently said, from the beginning of this, that if he's found to be in the wrong, he would, vacate office. It was him that said this quite repeatedly over the course of time when he was, when people tried to hold him accountable and he refused to give answers. The only undertaking he made was that if I'm found on the wrong side of the law, I'll step aside.
And Qaanitah, the ANC's KZN Provincial Secretary telling Samgele earlier on that they trust that the president will do the right thing, and they hope that things are not going to get to a point that they got to with Nkandla. Are you hearing that this is likely to be the dominant voice within the ANC right now as it goes into its NEC meeting tomorrow?
Yeah, I think that the president would definitely speak to the nation before that NEC meeting. I think he would have to make a decision before that meeting. I don't think he will leave his fate to that meeting. News 24 is reporting this afternoon that the president has said to those closest to him that he is very likely to step aside, not to step aside, to resign from office. Let's use the correct terminology. And that is the expectation now, with frantic talks underway. I know that there has been several virtual conversations between ANC leaders, and obviously in anticipation of the meeting that's going to be held tomorrow. Now, the president's resignation from office, would put the ANC and the country in a crisis. You mentioned earlier that the rand is already tanking. I think that it is quite interesting to see what unfolds in the next 5 hours or so when the president announces. But the expectation is that the president said to those closest to him that he will not dig in his heels, that he will not go down fighting, and that if it is in the interest of the country, he would put the interest of the country first. And so that will be interesting to see how that plays out in the next few hours.
And definitely would be interesting. Angelo, let's say that this afternoon you are his political advisor, you're sitting with him. What would you advise him as the right thing to do when he addresses the nation?
I don't know. It's a very difficult exercise in the imagination, but let's say I am. I would probably tell the man who is a billionaire to leave all this mess behind and move on. That the fight for this is not worth the rewards that you're going to reap. Whoever inherits the mantle of running a party in the internal disarray of the ANC from Cyril Ramaphosa is going to have to face that 2024 challenge and will be blamed for whatever the electoral outcomes are. And they don't look likely to be greatly positive for the African National Congress, given its internal struggles for coherence and given what we've seen happening to it in elections over the last 24 months. So this is not an organization that you want to take into an election if you're not fairly certain that you are clean and that you can defend yourself. And if you're going into this being challenged both internally on your record by people that you've appointed to ministerial positions, as well as by external to your party factors of people questioning the legality of your conduct, you may want to rest on your laurels, take your money and move on with your life and face the criminal issues that may arise from this, from the position outside government, which gives you access to greater legal leverage. But I'm not inside Mr. Ramaphosa's head. I don't know what it means to have wanted the presidency for as long as he's had it, that desire to have gotten it under the circumstances that he has, and now facing not just a potential harm to your reputation, but an ignominious exit from that position in a way that was not augured in by your accession to that position. When you came in strongly arguing that you are turning a new leaf for the party, you will renew the party. And a month before, 20 days before, you're hoping to get re-elected for the second term that is usually guaranteed to ANC presidents, barring death. People inside your party move against you, and now you have to answer to the parliamentary caucus about this process that the parliamentary caucus put in place through this expert panel.
All right, let me thank you both for your time. Qaanitah, it looks like you'll be burning the midnight oil again tonight. Thank you so much to you both for your time. Do appreciate it. That is Qaanitah Hunter, News 24's Politics and Opinions Assistant Editor, Angelo Fick, Auwal Socio-Economic Research Institute Director of Research.